Picture this. Christmas Day, 2006. You run out to the living room and see a pile of presents under the tree. As you begin to sift through the mess of packages, one of them seems to stand out. You drag the box out from underneath the tree and begin to tear it open. You pause and toss aside the wrapping paper as you stare in awe at the beautiful white box that simply says, Wii. In the top right, a caption reads, Wii Sports included. Though you may not know it now, that disc just might give you the most memorable gaming experience of your entire life. Now, just what was so great about Wii Sports? Well, the short answer would be that it was a new and innovative take on sports games that could be enjoyed by any audience. But this reasoning doesn't explain its massive commercial success and critical acclaim. I mean, when you went over to your friend's house to play on their Wii, it was just expected that you would be playing Wii Sports. Yes, the game being a console release may have contributed to those numbers, but it wasn't the only reason the game was successful. In Japan, over 1 million copies of the game were sold individually, just in the first 3 months. In fact, Wii Sports has done so well over time that it is currently the 4th best-selling video game of all time. And on top of that, its sequel, Wii Sports Resort, ended up being 16th best. But you already knew this, right? Wii Sports is a huge part of video game pop culture, seeing as it's never truly become obscure as a meme, which is quite the feat nowadays. So what specifically did Wii Sports do in order to achieve this status? Well, what better place to start than the beginning? And I mean the beginning. I mean Pong. Yeah, that's right. Did you forget that the first commercially successful video game was a sports game? And a ping pong game at that. Great things come from humble beginnings, I suppose. Anyway, Pong was a massive success in the toy industry, obviously, considering it pioneered an entirely new type of media. Immediately, companies started making new games, mainly other genres, but sports were still big in the industry. Sports games did okay early on, but what really caught people's attention were the more creative titles, Pac-Man, Galaga, Donkey Kong. Pretty soon people started to realize that sports games were just not as great, and the excitement over them being the new fad was fading fast. This didn't stop companies from making them, however, especially with Nintendo joining the game, and bringing with it more creative takes on game design. Titles for the Nintendo Entertainment System like Excitebike and Punch-Out are still well known in the gaming community, and even hold up somewhat well almost 40 years later. Then, something big happened. Electronic Arts Inc. began taking its first steps towards building its empire, namely signing contracts with major sports companies and figureheads so that they could start exclusively developing officially licensed sports games, starting, of course, with John Madden Football. Madden, as it came to be known, along with several other EA Sports titles, had begun to flood the video game market, choking out any competition in the sports genre. All except for Nintendo, who once again decided to change the game with the release of Mario Golf in 1999. It was no longer about how realistic a game looked, but rather how fun and creative the mechanics and gameplay were. And Mario Golf proved this, as did Mario Tennis, which came out a year later. Fans got sequels for both of these games when the GameCube came out, as well as 2 more Mario Sports IPs in 2005, Mario Superstar Baseball and Super Mario Strikers. By the time the Wii was introduced, Nintendo fans finally knew what they had coming, or at least they thought they did. Instead, once again, Nintendo caught everyone completely off guard, not only by making a revolutionary new sports game, but also by making it the Wii's console release game. And on top of that, it served as a hardware showcase for the capabilities of the Wiimote. In the beginning, it seemed as though this game had no chance of being anything more than a short-lived gimmick that would be played for a while and then never touched again. Then people started to play it, and it was good? No, it was great. No, it was phenomenal. A masterpiece. From the moment you opened the game for the first time and heard that beautiful title screen music, you knew that this game would create some of your most cherished childhood memories. It quickly became the perfect game to invite your friend over to play, or to bring out at family parties and play with your 90-year-old grandmother who has no idea what's going on, but still finds it enjoyable. That's the thing. The game appealed to literally everyone who knew what sports were. Somehow, Nintendo got all 5 sports featured in the game to near perfection in how they look and feel, while at the same time making them extraordinarily easy to play mechanically. The use of the Wiimote was, depending on which side of the argument you sway, either a stroke of genius or just really pointless and annoying. Tennis. You can pick it up for the first time and just have fun messing around with your friends, swinging the Wiimote as hard as you can trying to get an ace serve. Or, you can work your way up the ladder of NPC opponents and slowly discover new strategies to outwit the computer. There are so many minute details that Nintendo added in so that the player doesn't stalemate at high-leveled opponents. Like if you hit the ball to one side of the court, wait a split second longer before returning it again, it'll go towards the opposite side, which causes the computer to dive and miss. You can hit the ball to one side repeatedly with the front guy, which makes them hit the ball out of bounds. Stuff like that just isn't common nowadays. Baseball has extremely limited gameplay, and yet still holds its own against the other games. You can throw 4 different pitches by pressing different buttons on the controller. The AI is balanced enough for it to actually matter where you hit the ball, so the player actually has motivation to try and hit a line drive down the third baseline, instead of just swinging the bat as hard as you can. There's still a small amount of luck involved in how far the ball goes, but it isn't unfair most of the time, so it's fine. The only issue I have with it is there are only 3 innings, which makes the games go by pretty quickly. This tends to become problematic once you get to a point where the AI doesn't make errors, and your 3 outs get used up way faster than what would be reasonable. I don't really fault Nintendo for this, because otherwise it would just be way too easy. The bowling mechanics reach near lifelike unpredictability with how the ball moves, similar to how the oil will start to wear out on a real-life bowling alley. With a game as precise as bowling, though, the inconsistency of the Wiimote does start to become apparent. You could spend hours doing every throw almost flawlessly, and still just come short of that perfect 300, simply because of hardware performance. Regardless, bowling is still the fan favorite, and possibly the most replayable sport in the game. The golf maps are so peaceful, and if it weren't for the anger-inducing controls, it would probably be the most relaxing game ever. Especially on the last course. Seriously, they need to fix the putting sensitivity. A reoccurring theme I've noticed in this game is the soothing atmosphere. I always feel so comfortable when playing. Even if you're not a fan of the gameplay, you have to admit, the craft is stunning. For how much shit the Wii gets for not being powerful, I think it did a pretty good job creating an immersive setting for Wii Sports, especially in golf. I was never really good at boxing, so I didn't play it all that much. But from what I gather, the mechanics have an impressive level of complexity to them. In my mind, they were logically constructed and fairly easy to learn. That's another thing Nintendo did right. Pretty much all of the controls are super straightforward, since the gameplay is motion-based. This is especially helpful in a sport like boxing, where it can be hard to develop a decent button layout for all the different moves. Also, it's really satisfying to whittle down your opponent's health until you eventually knock them on their ass. Plus, the music is pretty great. Speaking of the music, I consider Wii Sports to have had some of the best in all of video gaming. Such tracks include If someone were to play this for me years from now, when I've forgotten the happiest parts of my childhood, it would bring a tear to my eye. Something about this music just makes me uncontrollably happy. You can't deny that it has an aura surrounding it that just makes you feel like a kid again. Perhaps the greatest thing about Wii Sports is how it was able to achieve such success almost completely by accident. Wii Sports is one of a kind. It will never be copied, remade, or replaced, and it will always hold a special place in my heart. Thanks for watching. Actually, though, I'm more of a fan of Kinect sports. Watch this. Come on. Oh, damn it.
A complete miss.
Hey, shut the fuck up. Complete miss, huh? You son of a bitch!